Here's the thing. Nobody is going to tell you to your face. And I mean nobody, because most people don't even have the vocabulary to explain what actually happened to you. But I'm about to tell you, I'm about to break it down in a way that's going to rearrange how you see every single thing you've been through. So pause whatever you are doing, take a breath, and really hear this. Because the reason they wanted you gone, the real reason, not the polished version they fed everyone else, not the excuse they rehearsed in their mirror until it sounded almost believable. No. Had absolutely nothing to do with anything being wrong with you. Not a single thing. It had everything to do with something being too right about you. You are not a victim in this story. You never were. You are a threat to their illusion. And deep down, they knew it before you ever did. Once you understand what I'm about to say, you're going to look back at everything that happened and it's going to hit you in a completely different way. The truth is out right now, and I promise you it's going to shock you. They wanted to get rid of you because you were too much, but not in a way people usually mean that. Not annoying, not overwhelming, not difficult, too much. In the way that exposed exactly how little they actually had going to be on beneath the surface. You walked into rooms and something shifted. People gravitated toward you without even trying, not because you were performing, not because you had some strategy, just because of you, your energy, your presence, the way you communicated, the way your mind worked, the way you made people feel genuinely seen when they were around you. And this one person, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Their face probably just flashed through your mind. They watched that. They stood there and watched it happen over and over again. And something inside them started to fracture in a way they couldn't control. Now, let me give you the metaphor that's going to make this whole thing click. I want you to picture yourself as a genuine $100 bill, real, issued by something way bigger than whatever social circle or workplace or family system you were navigating. Call it the bank of the universe. Call it source. Call it God. Whatever resonates. You carry value that was built into you before you ever walked into that room. Now, think of them as a counterfeit bill. And here's what's wild about counterfeit bills. They circulate just fine. They pass from hand to hand. Nobody questions them. Nobody holds them up to the light. Nobody second guesses their worth. Until a real one shows up. The moment you place a genuine $100 bill next to a fake one under the right light, the fake one is exposed. Not because the real bill is doing anything aggressive, not because it's trying to call anyone out. It just glows in a way the counterfeit physically cannot replicate. It has security threats, watermarks, microscopic details that only show up under scrutiny. And suddenly, everyone in the room can see the difference. That's what your presence did. You were the ultraviolet light that never asked for and definitely didn't want. Every time you walked into a space, your energy, your authenticity, your genuine way of connecting with people, it functioned as a detector. Not for criminals, for fakeness, for performance, for the hollow, manufactured version of confidence they'd been selling everyone around them for years. And they knew it, they felt it in their bones every single time you simply existed near them. Your frequency. Your frequency was acting as a mirror to their shadows. And they were desperate to get that mirror out of the room so they could go back to passing as the real thing without anyone holding them up to the light. Think about what that kind of envy actually feels like from the inside. It's not just, I wish I had what they have. That's surface level. It goes so much deeper. It becomes this consuming, obsessive thing. Because every time you succeeded, every time someone laughed at something you said, every time someone chose you over them, it was like that ultraviolet light getting brighter and brighter. Your intelligence, I want to say so. Your intelligence made their mediocrity painfully obvious. Your creativity made their empty, recycled ideas looked embarrassing. Your natural charm, the way you could just connect with people without trying, without the rehearsed lines, without the mirror practice, that was the thing that absolutely broke them. Because you cannot fake that. You can study it, you can mimic it, you can practice it in front of the mirror for hours, and it still will not land the same way. Realness has a frequency you can't manufacture, and they knew it. So they came up with a plan. And this is the part that should genuinely shock you, because it's more calculated than most people want to believe another human being would actually be. They ran a full smear campaign against you, a real one, not just petty gossip, not just passive-aggressive coldness, a deliberate, strategic, layered effort to dim your light, because it was a light they couldn't carry themselves. They could not become you. So they decided to make other people see you differently. Reframe your confidence as arrogance. Reframe your directness as aggression. Reframe your gifts as threat. Turn the very things that made people love being around you into reasons to be suspicious of you. Because if they could change the narrative, if they could rewrite the story people told about you, they could survive standing next the real thing without being exposed every single time. The plan ran in layers, and looking back now, you will recognize all of them. First came isolation. The isolation, subtle at first, almost invisible, little things, leaving you out of conversations, creating just enough distance between you and the people who naturally gravitated toward you. So slowly, you almost didn't notice it was happening. A missed invite here, a group chat you were not added to there. Then came the stress situations engineered specifically to destabilize you, to make you second guess yourself, to get you to so tangled up in your own head that your natural confidence started to flicker like a light with a loose connection. And when that still wasn't enough, the whispers started. The reputation attacks, the version of you they were selling to anyone who would listen, barely resembled you at all. Yeah, it was a distortion, something they created, because destroying the real version was the only way the counterfeit could ever hope to take your place. Here is what they got spectacularly, almost tragically wrong. They thought proximity to greatness was the same as possessing it. They sat there and watched you quietly, taking mental notes, studying your timing, your rhythm, your way of reading a room. They genuinely believed they could download your personality like software, reverse engineer your existence, essence, exact what made you magnetic, and install it in themselves. But here is the thing. You were not doing anything. You were just being. And that's the part they never ever understood. You can't replicate someone who isn't performing. You can only replicate a performance. What you had couldn't be copied because it wasn't constructed. It was real. It was issued by something deeper than technique or strategy or anything you could teach in a workshop. And all their studying, all their observation, all their careful mimicry, it produced nothing but a more polished counterfeit. And people can feel the difference between real and polished every single time. And now that person is isolated. And the plan didn't just fall apart. It didn't just fail. It backfired completely, because people are not stupid, even when it takes them a minute to catch on. The people who loved being around you recognized the energy shift. They recognized when something felt hollow and manufactured versus when something was genuine and alive. And one by one, quietly, without drama, they stopped showing up for the person who tried so hard to replace you. Because there is something in us, something deeply, fundamentally human, that knows the difference between someone who actually lights up a room and someone who's just standing in the dark, flipping the switch on and off and hoping nobody's notices the flicker. But here is where this gets even more layered. And I need you to really sit with this part, because most people who have been through something like this never fully processed what I'm about to tell you. There is a dimension to this that goes beyond just surviving their tactics. Something that has to do with how should I say that? Something that has to do with what your absence actually did to them once you were gone. Because here's the truth that almost nobody talks about, and it's going to reframe everything. They tried to bury you. They genuinely, in their heart of hearts, believed that removing you from the picture would be the end of the story. What they didn't understand, what they couldn't have understood from where they were standing, is that you were not something that could be buried. You were a seed. Let that land for a second. Every period of isolation they forced on you, every moment they tried to make you feel small, insignificant, forgettable, every door they pushed closed in your face, they thought they were ending something. Yeah, they were actually creating the exact conditions for something to grow that they would never, ever be able to stop. Because seeds don't need light to start. Seeds need pressure. They need the dark. They need the weight of the soil pushing down on them before they can push back up and break through the surface. Everything they threw at you, every tactic, every whisper campaign, every engineered moment of doubt was just pressure on a seed that was always going to break through. And now that you are out, now that you are growing in the open air, becoming more yourself than you've ever been, they are watching. And I need you to understand, it's destroying them in ways they will never admit out loud. You see, when you pulled back, when you finally accepted what was happening and you just went quiet, went still, removed yourself completely, something broke in them that they were not prepared for. They expected you to fight, expected you to reach out, to send the text, to show up somewhere, to give them the evidence that you were struggling without them in your orbit. That's what they were counting on. That was the whole play. Because as long as you were visibly hurting, as long as you were still trying, they could tell themselves they had power over you. They could look at you, at your effort to reconnect, and say to themselves, see, they need us. We still matter. But you didn't do any of that. You took them at their word. They wanted you gone. You went completely, thoroughly, like you were never there. Not breadcrumbs, no late night soft lunches, no desperate attempts to explain yourself or win people back. Just silence. Clean, complete, absolute silence. And that silence became a force of its own. You cannot negotiate with it. You cannot manage someone who's completely removed themselves from the equation. You thought you were the one with the power to end things. And then you discovered that the person you dismissed as less than was actually the one with the power to live. And living, real living, the kind where you don't look back, where you don't keep one foot on the door just in case. That's the kind of power that changes how someone understands themselves permanently. Of course, permanently. Because here is what your silence taught them. It taught them that some consequences are permanent. It taught them that there are people in this world who, when you show them the door, will walk through it and never look back. Never. Not because they don't care. No. But because they have learned that their presence is a gift, not a negotiation. It taught them that the control they thought they had, the ability to reject someone and still have them available, to push someone away and still keep the threat. That control was an illusion you were kind enough to maintain for them. And when you stopped maintaining it, the whole structure they'd built their confidence on started to collapse from the inside. They are discovering things about themselves right now that are deeply, profoundly uncomfortable. Things like they were not as independent as they told themselves. Your presence was regulating them emotionally in ways they never acknowledged. Your patience was making it possible for them to stay defended and protected while still having someone genuinely in their corner, genuinely seeing them, genuinely holding space for who they could become. Your understanding the way you saw through their walls, the way you recognized that their difficult behavior came from somewhere real, somewhere wounded. That was something extraordinary. That kind of patience, that kind of seeing doesn't come along more than once or twice in a lifetime. If ever, actually. If ever. And they took it completely for granted. Now they are around people with ordinary patience, patience that expires quickly, patience that doesn't accommodate their patterns, patience that has no room for who they actually are underneath all the defense mechanisms. And living without being understood, truly understood. It's kind of loneliness that doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It gets louder over time, much louder. They are also discovering that they cannot control their own feelings the way they thought they could. They performed. They performed, not caring for so long that they started to believe their own performance. But your silence is creating feelings they cannot manage. Missing you, they cannot talk themselves out of. Regret that they cannot rationalize away. Obsessive thinking about you, they cannot stop no matter how much they distract themselves, no matter how busy they stay, no matter how many new people they surround themselves with. And here is the thing about feelings, they break through your own walls. They are the most destabilizing kind because you cannot fight your own heart. You can only experience it. And experiencing emotions you swore you were immune to, emotions you built your entire identity around, not feeling. That's an identity crisis that goes very, very deep. And here is what's really keeping them up at night. Some words about that. They are realizing what they actually lost. and the specifics are absolutely destroying them. They lost someone who understood them on a level most people never offered and never will. They lost patience that went beyond ordinary, the kind that doesn't come along more than once or twice in a lifetime. I will repeat that. They lost a space where they could drop the performance, where they could be flawed and uncertain and genuinely human without being judged for it. That kind of safety, that kind of radical acceptance is rarer than anyone acknowledges. Most people spend their whole lives performing for everyone around them, never once experiencing what it feels like to be fully seen and fully accepted at the same time. You gave them that. You gave them a space, you gave them a place where they didn't have to perform. And they rejected it. And now they are performing for everyone all the time with no breaks, no relief, and no one who sees them, who sees what's underneath the masks. That's a prison of their own making. Prison. Let me reframe something for you that's going to change how you carry this whole experience. Their rejection wasn't random. It wasn't about you being unworthy or too much or too enough. It was a protective move by a system that wasn't ready to be seen clearly. You broke a generational script they were not ready to leave. Think about that. The patterns they were running, the defensiveness, the counterfeit energy, the need to control how others perceive them, those patterns didn't start with them. They were handed down, learned, inherited. Maybe going back through generations of people of their own family, in their family or their world, who learned to survive by staying small, staying defended, staying fake. Of course, fake, because being real was too dangerous. It's really dangerous sometimes. And you just existing, just being genuinely unapologetically yourself around them was a threat to that entire script. Their rejection was the system pushing back. It was survival instinct for a way of being that your presence was quietly, inevitably, beautifully dismantling. So here's the reframe that changes everything. Their rejection wasn't just survivable. It was protection. It was divine redirection. Every closed door they pushed shut was protecting you from a version of your life where you would have had to stay small enough to make them comfortable. Every moment of isolation they forced was time you spent, consciously or not, growing into a version of yourself that has absolutely no room for the smallness they required of you. What felt like loss was actual protection. What felt like being discarded was actually being redirected toward their life, the people, the opportunities that were always meant for you, not by accident, not just as a nice story to tell yourself to feel better, but because when something genuine gets separated from something fake, the genuine thing doesn't diminish. It finds its level. It finds its people, always. It finds its purpose. It becomes more itself, not less, not less, more. The real lesson in all of this, the thing I want you to carry with you moving forward, is this. You were targeted because you were genuinely, undeniably too much for someone who had too little. You were the real bill in a wallet full of counterfeits. You were the mirror they couldn't look into without seeing everything they were afraid they lacked. You were the seed they tried to bury, not understanding that burial is exactly what seeds need to grow. And everything they threw at you, every tactic, every smear, every engineered moment of self-doubt, all of it was just confirmation of something they could see clearly even when you couldn't see it in yourself yet. That you carry something real, something that cannot be manufactured, something that makes the fake things around it visible just by existing next to them. They wanted to get rid of you, not because you were a problem, because you were a revelation. And now they are living in the world you left behind, carrying the weight of what they chose, watching you grow in ways they could have been part of, but deliberately removed themselves from. They are watching. Of course, they are watching. And they are realizing that some losses don't fade, they deepen. And you are free. You are building. You are exactly where the redirection was always pointing you. And that's not a coincidence. That's what happens when the real thing finally stops apologizing for being real. That's what happens when you recognize that you were never the one being tested. You were the test. You were the test. And you passed just by being yourself.